Thank you, everyone. I make that 2 minutes. So a warm welcome to everybody who's just joined. I'm going to start this session now, and I'm going to start it with a bold statement. All the evidence seems to point to the fact that the procurement experience for business users is broken. And it's one of the biggest challenges in the procurement systems world today. Analysts tell us, and I hear this all the time from customers, prospective customers, and from my ear to the ground with the market, that business users are actively avoiding or misusing procurement systems and processes. That 90% of employees don't understand procurement processes. That 68% of procurement requests still happen via email and chat. That 50% of procurement spend is still not fully tracked. I think this reflects badly on our profession, and often on your function or your department. We're often seen to be getting in the way, to be process obsessed, to be difficult to deal with, and procurement is often best avoided. Thankfully, there's good news, and this is a big opportunity for the profession. There's a new generation of AI-powered solutions by Zycus that can solve this problem and deliver order and control out of chaos. It's proven to enhance the user experience for all communities and drive high user adoption, to improve risk, compliance, and governance, to increase efficiency, productivity, and to deliver actionable insights and unlock hidden value. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Quinn. I'm a Vice President at Zycus, and I have 20 plus years of experience in the technology and procurement space across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I'm now leading the team in the Middle East region for Zycus. Today, we're talking about the concept of intake management, the modern approach to purchase requests. And we're very pleased to introduce you to the innovative Zycus Intake Management solution in collaboration with Microsoft. Thank you all sincerely for taking the time today to be with us in this live session. By the end of this session, we hope to equip you with a strong case outlining the weakness and the chaos of the traditional approach to purchase requisitions, some insight into the new technology that is changing the game and evolving purchase requests with the new intake approach, how Zycus is delivering against this promise and leading the way with our Merlin intake management solution. And somewhere along the way, we'll try and share some tips to help set you and your organization up for success. So I've introduced myself. Next, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of Zycus. I'm going to outline some of the causes and the business impact of the current outdated approach. I'm going to introduce you to how AI can significantly improve the situation and move you towards an approach that has much more control, much more compliance. I'll give you a conceptual overview of Zycus Intake Management solution and how it delivers against that promise of control. And then I'll hand over to my colleague Tanya, who will provide a live demonstration of the Zycus Intake Management solution. She's going to outline some of the common use cases and scenarios, and you can see for yourself how easy it is to use. Tanya, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Sure, Dan. Hi, everyone. So nice to have you all on this webinar today. My name is Tanya Rajesh. I am a senior solutions consultant with Zycus. I have been with Zycus for a little more than 2.5 years, and I have been assisting customers like yourself transform their procurement space, especially using AI. I know AI has been a big buzzword now, but really we want to remove the mysteriousness from the entire part of AI and just show you how easy and how efficient it is to use and how easy it can make your day-to-day lives in the procurement space. Really thrilled to be showing you a live demonstration of our intake management solutions, and please feel free to drop any questions that you may have for us in the chat, and we will be able to answer them very, very soon. Thank you so much, and very welcome again to this webinar.
So I can't hear your audio, but I'm guessing you've finished. So give me a thumbs up if you're ready for me to move on. Excellent, excellent, thank you. Right, let's get started. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Zycus. If you've not heard from us before, you can be forgiven. I've condensed quite a lot into a one-page slide, so I'm going to go through it relatively quickly. On the left-hand side, that diagram you can see there, our Source-to-Pay Excellence Suite. This is our we call our deep value AI procurement suite. It's a source-to-pay suite. If you look around the outside blue ring, you can see source to contract and then purchase to pay kind of between 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Probably quite importantly, within the middle there, you can see the Merlin Agentic AI platform. Where you see Merlin is our Zycus brand for artificial intelligence. It combines elements of machine learning, generative AI, and agentic AI most recently. And I'll be touching on these a little bit as we kind of go through the session. We're very much a global organization. We're based in, our headquarters are in Princeton, New Jersey in the United States, and we operate across 100 countries, with myself kind of leading the Middle East, as I mentioned. We have something like 1,300 people across the business, and of those 1,300, about 50% of them are focused on research and development, and of that 50%, about 50% of those are focused purely on artificial intelligence. So we have a good AI capabilities, resources, and capabilities. We have something like 300 or 400 customers across the world, and we're very happy to give you an example of some that we're kind of very proud to be with. And hopefully, a few of you in the audience are customers, and hopefully a few of you will be customers in the very near future. We work across some very diverse industries. You can see there's kind of 35 plus industries across the world. We're also very fortunate, if you look at the right-hand side, to have some analysts rating us very highly. We have a reputation for innovation and AI leadership. You'll see probably the top two are the most recent. So you can see IDC recently voted us a leader in the AI-enabled source-to-pay. To my knowledge, I think that's probably the first analyst that explicitly calls out AI-enabled source-to-pay. So it's great to be seen to be a leader in that. And then below it, again, a few weeks ago, we were voted in the top 3 by Procurement magazine for source-to-pay platforms. And then, of course, we can't forget Forrester and Gartner, where we're a leader and a visionary. So when we're talking about Zycus, something we can't really kind of get away from is this concept of deep value. You'll see it in my background here. You'll see it on our website. You'll see it on the front page of this presentation. And you'll kind of see it all over our marketing. And it's something that's quite important to us. And it gives you an indication the way we think about procurement and the way we think we develop our products. So it's a simple metaphor that everybody can understand. The tip of the iceberg is basic cost savings, transactional efficiency, standard compliance. These are all good achievements that have been achieved over the last 10 or 20 years through the use of source-to-pay technology. But really, it's evolved so much in recent years and even months, where we now consider that kind of slightly, the traditional approach to source-to-pay. And the new approach is looking at opportunities that have really been quite difficult or expensive to unlock, but below the surface is a huge amount of untapped value. If we look at untapped savings opportunities, think of things like tail spend, which has traditionally been managed either very badly or very expensively. Intelligent procurement orchestration across the whole organization is a little bit of a mouthful, but essentially it means elements across the business, whether it's HR want to buy some laptops, marketing want to buy some t-shirts for a conference, finance maybe wants some software. All of those touch points can now be managed in an efficient and effective way. And we've developed the Merlin AI platform to address this. So you'll see our strapline underneath our logo, and the way we think about procurement and product development is about deep value. Under the surface, there's much more value to be tapped. This is a useful diagram. I kind of consider this the picture on the front of the jigsaw box. I'm going to show you kind of 2 communities of users, which is quite important to this conversation. On the right-hand side, we can see what we call power users. And power users are procurement professionals. So these are typically trained and experienced procurement professionals within the procurement function. And they're typically operating on the strategic side of the business, using source-to-contract technology, and to a lesser extent also procure-to-pay. And you can see that towards the right-hand side with that layer cake diagram pointing towards them. On the other side, we can see what we call business users. These are the people I mentioned, so somebody in marketing, operations, finance, etc. People across the business who are not necessarily procurement professionals. They don't necessarily even know how to spell RFX, let alone understand the processes. And they really can't be expected to. This is where we're going to focus today on Merlin Intake. Merlin Intake is replacing the purchase request approach. It's a modern, intuitive way of managing those requests in a much more effective way. And as we promised with the title of this presentation, to help you to move from chaos to control. So let's kind of look at the pain points firstly. This is a result of some work by some leading analysts. And what we can see here is kind of three key elements. So a lack of guided buying leads to these symptoms. So if users are not guided, it leads to unstructured requests. Unstructured requests means data which is not formatted in a way where the buyer can easily send it straight onto the market. There may be further information required, further questions. It may need to be reformatted. And all of this takes time, especially with a busy team, especially when there's lots of volume, and can cause delays. Much of this leads to Maverick spend. Cumbersome processes and lack of visibility means users very often go elsewhere. And all of this leads to low user adoption of the traditional procurement systems, which are seen to be too difficult to use. And all of this is a reinforcing cycle of inefficiency. More unstructured requests causes more delay, causes more Maverick spend, causes fewer adoption, and continues to loop in that way. But this has quite a significant impact to the business. The average enterprise loses 15 to 20% of potential savings. And it's not because of bad suppliers, bad negotiations, or bad buyers. It's simply because the process starts off in the wrong place. It doesn't have the right information to start with, and it leads to millions in lost value for organizations and trillions for geographies and for countries. It turns out only 62% of spend is actually contractually compliant. This means that 38% is costing you, not just in dollars. Non-compliant purchases can bleed 18% more on average than compliant processes. So if that's what we're hearing from the market, what are we hearing from our own customers and from people we speak to? I meet CPOs and senior procurement professionals almost on a daily basis, and we hear some kind of common themes. Number one, the process is very complex for all users. It's clunky, manual, and is difficult for both requesters and approvers to use, but also for the buyers who are looking to make sense of that requisition and to go to market with that request and deliver best value. We hear comments regularly about risk management being reactive and lack of compliance. And the lack of compliance to policies and procedures leaks value from the contract, creates additional risk, and ultimately results in the buyers reactively firefighting rather than proactive risk elimination and mitigation. All of this leads to manual processes, long cycle times, reduced efficiency and productivity. And an interesting point as well, that it also is a misallocation of resources. We find organizations all over the world tying up critical and limited buying resources in elements that are much more tactical and can really be automated using modern technology, freeing up that resource to focus on something that's much more value added and can deliver value elsewhere more strategically to the business. So ask the question, let's move towards control. Can generative AI help? Well, yes, we're very fortunate. Generative AI can help step change the process for all participants. It moves it from the complex to the conversational. Everybody in this day and age knows how to use a chat tool, and a chat tool applied to this process step changes the user experience quite dramatically. If we move the burden of and the expectation of the user having deep knowledge of your policies and procedures, and we can move it away from the end user and move that burden onto the AI, which can use it to guide the user and to guide them through the process, then great things can happen. AI identifies the key risks and opportunities and can proactively alert the buyer. Moving on from this, they can proactively eliminate. I think I've lost my screen sharing. No, okay, it's good. I thought I lost it for a second. Moving on from this, they can proactively eliminate and mitigate the impact early on in the process. And lastly, AI supercharges efficiency and productivity. True process automation becomes possible through autonomous decision making and co-pilots, guiding the user through the process, and in some cases, fully automating that process. So moving long drawn out processes away from months and weeks to maybe weeks and days, and maybe in the near future, hours. Let's look at those 3 points in a little bit more detail. So firstly, on the left-hand side of the screen, we can start to see the current process. The user has to log in. Maybe they don't know where their logins are. Maybe there isn't single sign-on available. They then have to know how to navigate the solution. They have to understand policies and procedures. They have to understand where to find the right supplier, how to create a requisition, maybe even who to forward it through if a workflow hasn't been set up. So they need to understand these workflows. Now, in reality, this is quite simple for procurement professionals who are using this kind of technology every day, all day. But for business users, it's really too complex to expect them, for all users, to get all of it right all of the time. Looking to the right, we start to see the current modern available approach to it. It's an AI-powered conversational, so not a click-heavy approach, a conversational approach, where an AI agent is trained and knows your policies and procedures. It uses that to guide you in an intuitive and natural way. It can be used across all devices and is available all the time. So if you prefer to use your phone or you prefer to use your laptop, you can use that. There's no training required because it's very intuitive. And really you're moving from clicks to natural language, where you can type in something in natural language, the system will understand it and question you, share further information, ask further questions, and give you true guided buying. And ultimately, a hidden benefit of all this is that it drives user adoption. And you start to move from a destructive circle to a positive circle, more adoption, more intuitive approach, more value delivered, and so on and so on. Okay, next, let's look at the kind of the manual purchase request, which is fraught with non-compliance and risk. As I mentioned, unstructured data needs to be managed, needs to be put in a way that the supplier market can understand and is prepared to bid against, which means typically missing information, formatted in a way which maybe doesn't make any sense or needs to be dealt with by the buyer. This creates a bigger workload and a burden for the buyer community, and also the risk of getting some of this wrong is on the buyer's shoulders. Ultimately, overstretched teams very often miss key information and they miss supplier updates, which can be crucial to the process. And unfortunately, they very often have very little time to negotiate, and sometimes even not negotiate at all. And it's very common that this is only 3 bids and a buy. And very commonly we see Maverick spend, where users are bypassing the process completely, buying it somewhere else, leading to reduced value, increased cost, and increased risk. With a true guided buying approach, we can start to look at identifying risk, and analysis tells us that 75% increased accuracy is delivered through this approach. This is driving compliance and governance, eliminating and mitigating risk and Maverick spend, whilst delivering a better user experience. So it's doing all of that and at the same time providing a better user experience that the user feels that they're being supported by procurement and the procurement team. Additionally, in combination with other Zycus tools, such as autonomous negotiation, we can unlock hidden value through automated, fully autonomous negotiations. Additionally, there's other elements like risk radar alerting, where buyers can be alerted to maybe natural disasters, financial risk, geopolitical risk, maybe legal, maybe data security risks, and so on. And it can also, the AI can help provide strategies to help them manage, to mitigate and eliminate these risks before they occur. Okay, third point. If we look at the kind of the top bar of this diagram, this is the traditional procurement approach. Even using online source-to-pay tools, we can still see things like the whole process often taking weeks, from trying to identify potential suppliers through building the request for proposal, maybe technical questionnaires, maybe commercial questionnaires, managing the communications and the RFP responses, trying to analyze all those responses, then doing the contract review, maybe negotiating the contract, supplier onboarding, and going through approvals, etc. Now, all of this process can take weeks. Even in the best managed organizations can take weeks. However, true automation and true guided buying allows much of this to be delivered in days, and actually we believe over time that can go down further, even maybe into hours as people learn more. So we start to see things like supplier discovery can be done by the autonomous agent. It can go out and find suppliers that you've worked with in the past that are considered low risk, or it can go outside and find suppliers, present them to the buyer for recommendations. For the RFQ, it can help build the RFQ for you. It can generate questions and sections for you, and the buyer can then make a decision whether to include or not to include. It can then, when the supplier bids come back, it can auto-score those questions. Now, not just closed questions, things like, do you have ISO 9001, yes or no? That's been available for 20 years or more. This can then also evaluate complex, detailed, open questions where you may be asking for a solution to a problem and auto-score all of those. Again, the buyer can spend some time evaluating all of these and make changes where necessary. And then it can summarize the contract, identify areas of risk, extract items from the sourcing element into the contract, automate supplier onboarding and supplier onboarding queries, and ultimately deliver faster approvals. So at the moment, it's about moving something that takes us weeks into days, and we think probably over time, maybe even into hours. It can even autonomously negotiate all of these items for you. Now, probably not in the very sophisticated strategic sourcing elements, but certainly in the tactical sourcing, it can automate that entire process, or it can do semi-autonomous, in which case the buyers can chip in and review certain elements before it moves on to the next step. Maybe they might want to review the award decision. Maybe they want to review some of the auto scoring, etc. Okay, so we've gone from the problems to the concepts to how AI can help. Now let's kind of start to move towards Merlin, which is our solution. So we've established already that the procurement experience is broken. We've already mentioned that many employees don't understand the process. They're still doing it manually via email and chat, and it's still not fully tracked. So what's the solution? Clearly, as we've established already, an AI-powered intelligent intakes engine, which allows users to purchase items in just a few clicks. They can request, track, and approve requisitions in just a few steps, get proactive alerts, approvals, and collaboration, be guided, maintain compliance from the start, all in a conversational interface that's integrated with Microsoft Teams. There are 300 million users of Microsoft Teams around the world. It needs little to no training and is a simple, intuitive, easy interface for them to use. This ultimately drives compliance. It unlocks deeper value and helps step change the user experience to deliver high user adoption. How does it work? Well, Tanya's going to show you in a few minutes, but simply the user asks a natural language question. I need to create a new supplier or sign an NDA. They'll interface with Merlin using Teams, using natural language in real time. It will guide them. It will understand their policies and procedures. It will understand the delegations of authority and guide them to be fully compliant and deliver a 70% faster intake time. Now, all of this has to be integrated really to be effective. And it's a task that needs some thought. You need to be able to access catalogs, not only your own hosted catalogs, but punching out to other catalogs. You need to integrate with contracts. They'll need to understand supplier information, approval workflows, delivery receipt status, accounting systems and budgets, things like that. But this will help you move from digital fragmentation to digital orchestration, ultimately moving you from chaos to control. There's two approaches to doing this. Firstly is the bolt-on approach, where you have multiple different modules, and you add an intake solution above it. Well, This is not a great idea. It's more integration. It's much more an integration project than an orchestration project. It's disconnected from source to pay. It gives the users an inconsistent experience across all those different modules and has limited scalability. At Zycus, we have a different approach. We have a fully integrated with source to pay for a seamless experience, is scalable and future ready, leveraging conversational intake across all of the modules. Importantly, this means we can use Merlin Intake not just for the examples I've given you today, but for conversational insights across the whole platform and across all modules. We call this Merlin Insights. I'll give you 2 examples of what we have today and some examples of what we have coming very soon. Number 1 is descriptive analytics. Descriptive analytics is things like asking Merlin, what is my Maverick spend? What is my average invoice time? And Merlin can go to the appropriate database from the appropriate module and pull that information back for you. Diagnostic analytics, which is why might contract compliance be low or declining? What trends or patterns are observed for high contract spend? Again, it's asking Merlin to diagnose what some of those issues are. Now that's what we have today, but in the very near future, and I'm talking very soon, it's being developed now, and we'll be deploying it very shortly. We're looking at prescriptive analytics. Prescriptive analytics is what actions can we take to improve contract compliance. We can look at predictive opportunities. So it can do things like flag up whether compliance rate is forecasted to improve due to a batch of contracts with auto renewal enabled. And then it can also link to agentic workflows. So these recommendations can trigger actionable workflows, such as triggering the spend savings agent or the category management agent. Okay, so enough of me talking about the concept. Hopefully that was straightforward and useful and helpful, and hopefully I've set Tanya up for success. Tanya, would you like to take over and show us a screen and take us through a live demonstration?
Absolutely, Dan. If you still can't hear me, then just a thumbs up from my side.
Thank you, Tanya. Over to you.
Great, thank you.
I'll stop sharing my screen so you can take over.
Yes, please.
Thank you, everyone. Hope that was useful.
Give me a moment and I will bring my screen up. All right, team. Dan, can you, okay. I think my screen should be visible. It should say Merlin Intake here on the top right-hand corner. Now, this is what we were talking about, when we say intake management, and this is really the transformative product that we have come up with. Now, this is generative AI powered, and we have integrated with Microsoft Teams to bring this application called Merlin Intake. Now, Merlin Intake is an application that is present, that sits within Microsoft Teams. So as you can see, the look and feel is MS Teams. This is my instance of MS Teams. I am on presentation mode, and the Merlin Intake application will be visible here on the left-hand side corner, right? To use this application, users will, of course, need to have a subscription with Zycus. And once they have that, they can download the Merlin Intake application from the Microsoft Teams App Store. Now, this application has been completely developed in-house by the Zycus team, and this is a generative AI-powered application. Now, I think Dan, explained very brilliantly what are the current challenges that the procurement team is facing, especially especially the challenges that are being faced by the business users, right? That's the number one challenge. One challenge, that we also hear very, very frequently when we talk to customers in Middle East, in India, across APAC, is that they tell us adoption is not the best when we hear SaaS platforms or when we hear procurement SaaS platforms. Of course, procurement geniuses like yourself, very adept to technology. But when we talk about business users, that is where the real gap sometimes comes. Now, across the last decade, quite a few changes were tried. User interfaces were made better, colors were added, user guides or in training user guides were in content. Training guides were actually added within the solution. That definitely helped see greater adoption, but it still didn't increase the adoption levels to where it should be. So user interface still was a problem. That is where exactly Zycus decided that let's bring the procurement platform to the users instead of taking the users to the procurement platform. And what's a better interface than Microsoft Teams? And that's where we came up with Merlin Intake. Now, Merlin Intake is your front door to procurement, like Dan mentioned. This can be the starting point of your day for procurement professionals as well as for business users as well. Now, the demonstration today primarily will be more from a business user standpoint. The idea is to show how any user within your respective organizations can use this application to provide or add in any requests with respect to procurement. That is where the intake of procurement will come in, and that's why we call the entire process as intake management, how intakes or how requests can be handled by the procurement team. Having said that, there are quite a few other core functionalities or core capabilities that can be taken up by the power users or by the core procurement members. For them, the idea is that about 40 to 45% of procurement activities can be done within the Merlin Intake app, within the MS Teams interface. However, of course, for things like drafting a contract, for actually creating a sourcing event, you will have to log into the web version of the platform, Zycus in this case. Great. So that was some background on why we came up with Merlin Intake. I think we covered the challenges in detail in the last 20 minutes. And now it's time to actually look at what this platform is, what Merlin Intake is, right? So I am on the Merlin Intake application. This is the entire look and feel of the application. All the past chats with Merlin Intake will be visible here. Like Dan said, this has a completely conversational interface. Users can go ahead and in natural language, like they are chatting with any procurement colleague of theirs, they can just type in what their requirement is here and click on start chat. Because this entire application is generative AI powered, AI is constantly analyzing past user behavior, and it is also showing what are immediate actions that need to be taken, what are the frequent actions that need to be taken. Plus, this application is completely role-based access controlled. So depending on the role of the user, only those limited functionalities will be available to them. So all that is just a matter of configuration, and that can all be set up in the backend. With Merlin Intake, users also get another channel to receive notifications. Of course, with Zycus, or should you use the Zycus platform, notifications can be received via emails and through the Zycus in portal platform, which is the web version of Zycus. But with Merlin Intake, the system will now go ahead and send notifications on Microsoft Teams as well. So further making the entire procurement environment very, very accessible to any user. And this is especially useful from an approver standpoint, because approvers would probably receive multiple approval requests in a given day. Having multiple channels to receive the communication really helps them. There is the profile section where users can go ahead and manage their profiles, their settings, their standard FAQs, just to handle any questions about Merlin Intake, about settings, all of that. So now if I start my day, and as an end user, I have realized that I need to go ahead and get in some services from a supplier. But before I start using the supplier for services, I need to go ahead and onboard them. Now, as an end user, that's all that I know. I need to onboard a supplier. Let's see how I can go ahead and perform my part by providing in the request to onboard a supplier. So what I will do here is that I will just go ahead and type in, I want to onboard a supplier, as if I am, providing this message to a procurement colleague on Microsoft Teams or the intra-company communication channel. Now, what the system will now do is it will analyze the input that is given by me, and it will try to understand the intent of the user. Now, based on that, it will provide the required output to the user. We will see how the entire conversational interface will behave. The other USP of the entire platform is that this has the organization's procurement policy embedded in the backend, which means that the system will be intelligent enough to understand and to know how the organization's procurement policy is structured, and it will accordingly guide users in the right direction. We will wait for the system to analyze the input. Or in the interest of time, I can show you a previous chat as well. Now, typically what happens, similar example, right? We can tell the user that we wanted to onboard a supplier. The system will try to understand what the input is and understand the intent. In this case, my input was pretty much standard. I said, a supplier onboarding needs to happen. I went ahead and I provided the name of the supplier, which is HK Engineering in this case. Now, in a usual case, once the end user or the business user has sent in their request to onboard a supplier to the procurement team, there will be a lot of checks that will happen in the back end, right? The procurement team member will first have to check if the supplier is already present in their database or in their repository. If the right performance assessments for that supplier has been done, or background checks on that supplier has been done. So a lot of processes are involved for onboarding a supplier. In this case, what the system really does is the system will first go back and in the back end check if the supplier is contracted or not. It does realize that the vendor is not contracted. The system then goes ahead and starts asking the right kind of questions in order to direct the user in the right direction, right? So because I'm showing you a preloaded chat, the system then did go ahead and ask, okay, can you please provide the contract value? I provided the contract value, which is about $100,000, euros, your currency can be set up. Now, the system then says, based on my input, that since the provided contract value is less than or equal to 250,000, here is the next step for you. And it does go ahead and provide me a new vendor onboarding form that needs to be filled. Now, in the real difference that you will see with Merlin Intake here is that the system now is doing all the tasks for you. Since the procurement policy has been embedded in the backend, the system does tell you that per the policy, the contract value is less than 250,000, and therefore, per the policy, you have to go ahead and fill a vendor onboarding form. When you click on that button that says new vendor onboarding form, the system goes ahead and opens an onboarding form request for the end user to go ahead and plug in all the details. The look and feel of the entire form is something that can be configured based on your company's requirements. A lot of the information will also be auto-populated based on the chat that the user has had with the system. And the user can go ahead, fill in whatever pieces of information they would know, and they can click on submit. Now, this is a pretty comprehensive form that you're currently seeing on my screen. This form can be made really simple, or it could be made as complex as needed. Just to kind of highlight the process here, team, this process that I'm showing you is not a process that is set in stone. We will be completely replicating your existing processes. We will be replicating what vision you have and helping you optimize the entire process. You probably may not have a process where a user has to go ahead and provide in the details. Whatever be the process, we will fit it within the Merlin Intake platform. So all the workflows that I'm showing you, it's not really set in stone. We can absolutely configure your requirements and your processes accordingly. Now, as an end user, I went ahead, I provided in all the details, and I can also see what the workflow or delegation of authority that will be followed in order for this request to be approved before the new supplier gets onboarded. So I do have that kind of visibility as well, and I can go ahead, click on submit. Once I click on submit, the system does tell me that, okay, the request has been now submitted, and I as an end user will constantly be notified on, on Microsoft Teams, on emails, or within the Zycus platform, whatever be my preferred method of communication. So this is one way as to how an end user can go ahead and submit in the request for onboarding the supplier. There can be multiple other workflows as well, right? Also, to kind of let you know, team, that Merlin Intake, while we have a collaboration with Microsoft Teams, we are also building collaborations with other communication platforms like Google Chat and Slack, because we do also understand that other organizations or some organizations may be using platforms other than MS Teams. So those kind of collaborations are being built. We also have a web URL for a platform like Merlin Intake that can be used in case if the system or the organization is not ready to use MS Teams or any other chat-based platform. But if you want to have a chat-based interface for procurement, you do have a URL that can be used. I just wanted to highlight that. Anyway, let's look at another example, where as an end business user, I woke up and I realized that, my headsets are not working today. So I can go ahead and I can tell the systems that I want to buy a new headset. And I can click on start chat, or I can just click on enter. Now, again, in this case, the system does try to understand what the user intent is by analyzing the input. And based on that, based on the underlying procurement policy, it will go ahead and, guide the user in the right direction. So in this case, I said that I want to buy a new headset. Now, typically in most organizations, the next step would be for users to go ahead and look at the catalog options so that they can make a purchase. Again, in this case, you can see that the entire process becomes so seamless, because as an end business user now, I do not need to constantly reach out to the procurement team, ask them if they can share catalogs with me. Within this interface, I can always go ahead, view catalogs based on my input, select the right item, and just go ahead and make a purchase. So simply, if I like the first option, I can see what the catalogs are. If I can always view more items. In this case, I just like the Jabra Elite headset. I can add it to the cart. I can click here on the cart. It's a very Amazon-like experience, team. Once I have done that, I can simply click on checkout. Once I've confirmed that the right item has been added to the cart, and the system then directs me to a purchase requisition creation page. Again, like I constantly want to tell you, team, that the processes that I'm showing you are not set in stone. Your processes can be embodied on the Merlin Intake application and within the Zycus platform. We are a pretty flexible and configurable platform. The user, all they have to do is go ahead, fill in their purchase requisition form. Once they've figured out all details are accurate, they can click on I am done, and a purchase requisition will be submitted. The required purchasing team can then look into this purchase and go forward with the processes. There may also be another process where a purchase requisition can automatically be converted into a PO, and that PO has to be directly sent to the supplier. That process can also be done on Merlin Intake. This is one of the multiple processes and multiple possibilities that can happen. So like you saw, team, this was just a 3-click process for an end business user to go ahead and buy a headset. They just said they wanted to buy a new headset. The system went ahead, showed them recommended catalogs per company's policy. They selected the right item, added it to the cart, filled in the requisition form, clicked on submit, and that's pretty much it. The system will then constantly give them details on how they can go ahead and track the progress of their acquisition as well. So this was a standard case where the user wanted to go ahead and buy or make a catalog based purchase. But then there is a good chunk of non-catalog purchases that do happen, right? So say, for example, I say I want to replace my keyboard, right? And really, team, there is absolutely no structure or language that needs to be followed. The user can just type in whatever they are thinking in terms of their requirement, and the system will try and understand the intent. It may further ask clarifying questions, so there is detailed requirement elicitation that the system will do unless it completely understands what the user intent is. So here again, I said I want to replace my keyboard. The system doesn't understand that, okay, probably purchasing the right keyboard or replacing the system is required. It does go ahead, show me a few catalog options. In this case, I don't like whatever catalog options have been shown to me. So I say, okay, I would just want to go ahead and make a free text purchase. Free text purchase is where I would go ahead, just manually key in all my requirements, and then the system can recommend suppliers to me, or I can go ahead and initiate a sourcing event. So I said order free text. Now, because the system is intelligent enough and because the system really understands, how my procurement policy or how the organization's procurement policy is, it then tells the user that your organization recommends purchasing from contracted vendors. So there is a second nudge or a push that's provided to the user to ensure that they are at least purchasing from contracted vendors, to ensure that the existing contracts are completely utilized. This is also the part, team, where off-contract spending can be reduced, right? There's more of on-contract purchasing. Maverick spending really can be reduced. So here the system then goes ahead and shows who are the other recommended suppliers, who are the other contracted suppliers from whom this purchasing can actually happen. If I like, I can click on select, assuming that I do not like any of the recommended suppliers. So I can simply go ahead and click on none of the above. So as you can see, there are multiple action buttons that can be placed based on the required workflows, depending on the action buttons that the user clicks. Merlin Intake will guide them or will direct them in the right direction, ensuring maximum compliance. Okay. So in this case, the system's then asking me, what is the purchase value? Let's say I say, $30,000 is my purchase value. Now, based on my input that I have given, the system again goes ahead, analyzes the input, and tells me that as per the procurement policy, since you're not sure of the supplier and since the purchase value is more than 25 grand, we will have to go ahead and source the suppliers to get the best bid. For the purpose of today's demonstration, we have uploaded the procurement policy in the backend, and this output that's given by the system is based on their demo procurement policy. Now, all these outputs that you see, or the chat that you see that is happening with the system, will completely be based on your organization's procurement policy, right? And then the system also goes ahead and it shows me the process map, the compliant process map that has to be followed. So it does show me that since the purchase is more than 25,000, which is 30,000 in this case, since I do not know what supplier has to be selected, a sourcing event will have to be done, then a contract will have to be created, then I'll have to enter details in the request form, and that's when the purchase requisition or the purchasing can happen. So as an end user, I am not looking or scrolling through a 50-page or a 100-page or a 20-page procurement policy. I am just getting to see what I want to see. So definitely, the user satisfaction increases, the adoption increases, there is better compliance, Maverick spend reduces for sure. So I can go ahead, click on continue right now. When I click on continue as an end user, the system does tell me, okay, so now we go on with the first step, which is creating the sourcing request. Since I am an end user, I probably do not have, the power to go ahead and create a sourcing event, because that is with the central procurement team. As an end user, I can just provide my requests or my intake in a request form. So I can select the right or the required request form. Based on my role, again, I may just be able to see a specific request form. So what the system again does is it goes ahead and it will auto populate the request form based on the communication that I have had with Merlin Intake, based on the role that I have in the system. And I can always go ahead and again look at this request form that has been auto populated, look at all the information, and once all the details have been entered, um, especially the mandatory fields, I can go ahead and then click on submit. Other than that, I can also see the workflow process, that will be followed in order for this entire request to be completed. So again, team, we can see here that be it a catalog purchase, be it an off catalog or an on catalog purchase, be it requests like onboarding suppliers, adding in requests for simply signing an NDA or creating an NDA with a partner, or with the supplier that you're talking to. All of that are just requests that can be given to the system as an end user. And the end user and that end user, once they've provided in their request, the system will be intelligent enough to understand the intent and accordingly direct them in the right direction. As for a core procurement user, you will be able to see all the requests in terms of notifications for you. If there is an approval, you all will be able to make changes or approvals within Merlin Intake, and you all will be able to also act on it within about 10% acting can happen within the Merlin Intake platform. But of course, for things like creating an actual creating of a sourcing event, actual contract creation, you will have to rely on the web version of your procurement platforms. Another very common example, that our customers tell us, especially as an end user, is, for example, they got the headset, but they did not like the headset, right? So now they want to go ahead and return the headset. In this case, I can just go ahead, tell the system I want to create a return. Now, again, it's the system's duty to really understand, what is the user trying to tell it. In this case, when I said create return, the system is telling me, can you please clarify, would you want to create a return note? Do you want to do it for an existing purchase requisition or an existing purchase order? In this case, I said, okay, I want to create a return note for an existing purchase order. And then it shows me all the POs that I have that have been created for me for my role in the system. I can select the required PO. For instance, I'll just select this particular PO. I can see that for that specific PO, the items have been delivered. I can select the item that I would want to return. So here I want to return one item. I can go ahead and enter the reason for return, also understand how the settlement for the money needs to happen, and I can click on submit. So again, as an end user, I do not need to rely on the procurement team. I do not need to go anywhere outside of Microsoft Teams. All of the activity is happening within Microsoft Teams, right? And I can see that the action has been completed successfully within MS Teams. So that's another commonly used use case that business users can do. Um, Team, the examples that we are currently showing you, these are some very, very common examples that we have been asked when we talk to customers like yourself. I would again like to tell you that above and beyond these examples, there are a lot of other workflows, lot of other capabilities that Merlin Intake has within the entire source to pay system. One very, very common ask from a lot of our executive stakeholders especially is analytics, right? We all know how important analytics is, how important Power BI is, how important reporting is, dashboards are. But the reason why they are important is that users would want to look at those, uh, graphical reports and dashboards and really understand what are the areas where too much of spending is happening, what are the areas where Maverick spending is happening, right? It's basically to draw and get more better conclusions, just so that savings can definitely be optimized, or savings can definitely be maximized, and spending can be optimized, right? um, the good news is, with Merlin Intake, you don't have to really look and spend a lot of time just looking and analyzing at dashboards. You can go ahead and ask questions to Merlin Intake, and the system will help you with the conclusions, right? So for example, I am donning the hat of an executive stakeholder, and I may say that how much have I spent on a category, say like office supplies, okay, in the last year. Let's see what Merlin Intake has to say. Now, in the back end, the system is actually looking at the data from your ERP system. Of course, there will be integrations in place. It will also be looking at the procurement system, which is the Zycus system in this case. Now, the system or Merlin Intake actually is going ahead and looking at all the data on your behalf. It's looking at all the dashboards and reports that have been created. And based on that, it's really giving you insights. So now the system is telling, that office supplies spending in 2024, which was the last year, it totaled to X amount, which represents a significant budget allocation. It also further gives you what are the recommendations that can be done. Further, if you scroll down, it gives you what are the typical key findings. We also have some agentic AI based insights that the system is telling you. So all of that information can actually be looked at, and you can actually use this information to analyze your data. Not only that, if you further want to keep chatting with Merlin Intake just on insights, you can do that. You can type in your own question over here, or you can use, these questions that the system recommends, and you can constantly have a chat and keep drilling down into the data and get more granular information or get more granular input. So that's really how the entire process here works. So not only just with helping you, with your source to pay processes, but also with respect to insights and analytics. And don't get me wrong, team. This does not limit Zycus's capabilities to not create reports and dashboards for you. Of course, we have a dedicated system and module that helps create reports and dashboards. But since we are in the era or the unstoppable era of AI, we've definitely made strides to take a step further and help AI analyze reports and dashboards for you, save your time, make you more efficient. You as an end user ask the right questions, get the output, get the analysis done by AI. Now, what you need to do is just spend your time working on the action items, right? So that's really how we would want to empower you, make you more efficient in the day-to-day practices, and help you save time, and most importantly, help you maximize your savings. So that's it from the demo standpoint. We are right on time. We have 1 more minute left. I'm not sure. I was not able to see the screen, but I hope we've had any questions that we were able to answer. Anything else, we'd be happy to take it offline or at a convenient time.
Thank you, Tanya. I think all questions have been answered already, actually, throughout the event. So thank you to BRD. And if anybody else thinks of any other questions you'd like to ask us, feel free to fling it across. I shared on a previous slide our LinkedIn, or you can certainly search for us on LinkedIn. And feel free to fire any questions our way, and we'll come back to you. Otherwise, you can get me at dan.quinn@zycus.com. And happy to help. And if I can't answer it, I'll put you in touch with somebody who can. Very last thing, let me just kind of share my screen, just a bit of a reminder before we all wrap up. 1 second, and I shall be with you. And it's really just a plug for our YouTube channel. So this video will shortly be published, assuming it's all gone okay and I didn't mess up my audio or anything like that. It will be published on YouTube, so you'll be able to see this as well as a whole bunch of others. There's a huge amount of really good content on it, so feel free to subscribe. Of course, you can also catch us on the other social media elements, so LinkedIn, X or Twitter if you prefer, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Can't emphasize the YouTube enough. There's some really great content on there. You can see even the one, the second one in from the right is our CEO talking about deep value and our agentic AI and intake management strategy as a corporate. It's probably a few months old, but it's still very current, still very useful, and I highly recommend having a look at that. And you'll also see some customer interviews, customer case studies and testimonials and things like that. So it's it should be helpful. We've done all the questions and answers. So all that leaves me to say is thank you very much. Really appreciate your busy people taking time out of the day to listen to us talk and learn more about this process. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully found it useful. And I'm hoping that some of you will become Zycus customers in the very near future. I'll leave it at that. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Tanya, for a great job. Thank you for the team in the background answering questions and navigating everything, BRD and Imper. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.